your thoughts on the way creativity can strengthen society and or strengthen your profession, and as a leader of creative change, which you all are, what would you like to see happen in the future? And we could start with, you want to start the other end?
Let's start this time. I think this is kind of going off of what Diego was saying earlier. I would love to see our educational system embrace creativity as and put it in highest regards as they do math and science. I think it's just as important, if not more so. And I think it is our natural tendency. I do think that's something that we're born with. We all are creative. You know, it varies depending on the you know, the amount and how we are, but we all are. And it's incredible that as children, it was very natural for us to explore, to ask questions, to imagine. And when we hit the educational system, I do think that we're untaught. You know, they take it out of us. They take it out of us because we learn that, you know, it has to be this way, this way, this way, that there's one right answer. And it just, that is incredible to me, that now I'm teaching graduate students how to do something that they were born to be able to do. And it just, it almost boggles my mind, really. You know, I mean, there are so many incredibly intelligent people out there, and I know there is sort of that move towards, oh, maybe this you know, this does have some value, but I think our educational system would be so much more strong, you know, if we really focused on that as much as we did some of the other things.
And now with those 21st century skill reports and all of the reports that have been coming out lately, and the word creativity is in them now, which we haven't seen in a long time. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's an incredible thing.
And I think that creativity is, well, and even Bloom's taxonomy, he came out.
Yeah.
And I remember writing a paper for Don Treffinger and saying, I think that creativity should be at the top. And he was kind of like, yeah, right. But then Bloom came out and said, you know, that synthesis is really creativity, and that's at the top. And the thing is, in order to be creative, and we know the creative problem-solving process, you need all those other things. You need to be able to analyze a task. You need to be able to focus on details. You need to be able to comprehend. All of the everything is involved in creativity and putting it together in a new way. And no matter whether it's math or science or anything, I think that all teachers should pick the most important stuff of their curriculum and do something creative with it, and have kids do something creative with it. And then they're going to remember that. Because when kids have to make a video of global warming, they're going to always remember those details and those things that went into global warming. We can't do it with everything because we don't have enough time, but if we pick, you know, just like the most important, everyone takes their curriculum and says, what's the most important thing, and, you know, works the kids through some kind of creative project. That's what I would do to, you know, kind of change our society, change education, is to really have those creative projects going on.
I think you're right. I mean, we need to start somewhere. You know, we can't change it all together. We can't change it overnight. But, you know, by teaching them these skills for them to be successful, and creating that environment, back to the environment too, and helping them to be better risk takers. You know, it reminds me of Dave Meyer, accelerated learning, that I'm sure that you're familiar with. I think it's so incredible. I teach some of this stuff to my students, but another thing's just so strange is that it's common sense. You know, this is common sense. Get your kids to be immersed in it. Get them to be involved physically, you know. I tell my students, you know, just think about being a kid again. How did you do this as a kid? That's really a good place to start. You know, how did you explore? How did you imagine? How did you solve problems as a child? Let's go back there and start over.
Kind of bring the curiosity back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And start with some of those.
I remember a parent actually called me and asked me to please stop asking her child to wonder at home because she didn't know how to help them.
So cute. See, then you could coach the parents, see, and bring them on board.
And he was one of the most creative kids that
Yeah.
I ever worked with. And I said, you know, he doesn't need you to help him at home. He knows how to wonder. You know.
Yeah. Well, and I would have to agree with Kara and Nancy insofar as the need to really mainstream this. You know, I think if it's something that is taught right from the get-go, children will just naturally, like we do, continue to apply the process to projects, you know, and so forth. Because at my end, you know, when I'm working with adults, Kara, you said something about it's amazing that you have to teach something to folks that they naturally have, but they've kind of buried. One of our challenges is to get people to really believe that they can and that they are creative and so forth. So it's very, very important that they do get that reinforcement, you know, throughout. The other thing, and I don't know why this popped into my head, but I sincerely believe that creative problem solving, learning that and teaching that, it will help if we're diligent. It can really help with addressing some of the major issues, the major problems that we're dealing with, whether it's in a classroom, whether it's in a school, in a district, in a county, you know, or what have you. And this phrase, for some reason, just kind of kept popping into my head. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. And that, to me, I really think that that's what CPS does. It gives people the basic foundational skills to advance and to take themselves and put themselves anywhere they choose to be. And what kind of power is that? And one of the things that, for me personally, that I got out of the coursework and the training was that I finally realized that I had more power over what was happening than I thought I had. And I think once you have that realization and you have tools to go with it, you have a process. Step 1, step 2, step 3. You know, folks need that until you internalize it. That can really get folks anywhere. And when we look at so many folks that, you know, have all sorts of challenges, and we all do, you know, as well, but I think we have an advantage. We have a process. We have a way to work through it. But for that reason, I think it's important that it is mainstreamed at some point. K through 16, I think, is critical.
Now, you've also had a chance to look at the longitudinal data from the Creative Studies Project.
Yes, yes,
And we have a whole host of impact studies as well
yes,
on creative problem solving.
yes.
But from the longitudinal data, what kind of benefits or what things really struck you about the power of deliberate creative process?
Well, and I think it's just that, and I think it's this whole, what I saw in interviews with folks is that the individuals that had gone through that 2-year training, because it ran from 1970 on, the folks that had gone through that training, once they did finish it, they really took their lives and their careers and ran with it and started all sorts of initiatives and headed things up, and were very active in their community, were very active, you know, in expanding their career, and so it's that, if I can use the term, that locus of control. You know, where do you think the control is? Is it internal or is it external? And I think CPS, and I don't have anything to back me up yet, but I really think that CPS can, it's at least affected in some way. You know, not to say that it's going to give anyone a 180-degree turn, but I think it does bring folks to the awareness that they can actually accomplish what they want. And that's really what we saw. You know, the folks that we talked to that had been through the program oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe all the things that they had accomplished, and they were still enthusiastic, energetic, and still, you know, creating new things.
And this is 30 years later.
This was 30 years
More
later.
than 30 years later.
Yeah, it
'Cause
was
you
more
just
than 30
interviewed
years
them.
later. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's a key part.
And you're saying empowering. I mean, it really
Yes,
is.
it really is.
It's empowering. I remember going through my first class. What is it? What's the 560 or whatever it is?
Yeah,
The first
the
class.
559.
And having that realization that I can solve any problem. So
Right.
whether it was my keys are locked in my car, and rather than just crying, you know, I can solve
Get out the
this.
Post-it notes.
You know, I can, you know, yeah. So it's I can do this, and
Right.
just believing.
Right.
And no one ever said, you know, in those classes, no one ever said, you should believe in yourself. I mean, that wasn't explicitly taught,
It's a byproduct.
but it happened.
Right.
And that was one of when I was looking at, for my master's project, was looking at the curriculum, and it was not in there explicitly, but it was implicit, and others had, the same thing happened to others, what you're describing.
Right. Right. It seems to be a given. You know, it's not that once you get in the classroom that the instructor will say, well, see if you can do this. It's do it. And you do. And certainly you have support behind you with the process, but you do. So.
I had a similar experience too with just the feeling of empowerment. There were many instances through the course of the year, but I think it was David Gonzalez, who was an adjunct professor, who he was leading the master's project, and we were just talking about kind of goals and visualizing, and that's a big thing with me, that I truly believe in the power of visualization. But at one point, I was feeling stuck about something, and, you know, I just don't see this happening. And, you know, I think anyone in the world could have said it at any other time, but because he said it at that particular moment, at that place in the program, he just looked at me and said, why not? And it was like this incredible moment, like, yeah, why not, you know? And that has just stuck with me. And I'll email him every once in a while, just, you know, do you know how much you know, impacted my life? And again, you know, it was everything kind of coming together, but it was that realization that, yeah, I can do anything. And look what I've done so far, you know? But in a way that I feel good about it, not like, oh, look what I've done. But I set my goal. I said, you know, these are my dreams. These are the things that I wanted to do. And I've been able to do that. And to share that now with other people and students, that is so exciting.
Well, it's funny that you bring up that language, because we all know how important language is. And I've got folks at work that tease me all the time, because they'll turn around and say, well, it's not, you know, we should phrase it, how might I do this and that? So, okay, you're right, and so how might I? But, you know, other folks are thinking in that way, and it really is a great tool to realize that just shifting those words a little bit, changing the question, really makes it so much more powerful. So it's a very good point.